The Philippine government's been moving fast to combat dengue. In December, it approved the sale of the world's first dengue vaccine, Dengvaxia. Now they're going around schools, and the target is to vaccinate more than 1 million school children against the dengue virus.
Colita's family insists the child grew up to be strong and healthy with no history of any illness. They believed Dengvaxia could be the culprit.
Do you have records of how many have allegedly fallen ill? Because I'm reading different numbers.
In the light of this new analysis, the DOH will place the dengue vaccination program on hold.
We at Sanofi assure each and every one of you that Dengvaxia is and continues to be a safe and efficacious vaccine.
Dengue is the fastest growing, most common mosquito-borne illness. It's primarily a problem in the southern hemisphere, especially in Asia and Latin America, and each year it infects 390 million people. There are 4 different strains of the virus, and you can get sick from any of them. But usually the way dengue works, the first time you get an infection, you don't get very sick. You may not even know that you're sick. But with the second infection, if it's from a different strain than your first infection, there's a higher chance that you'll get severely ill. The cases where people die of dengue most often result from a second infection. So the vaccine against dengue had to be able to protect people against all 4 strains. Sanofi thought that it had that with Dengvaxia. Sanofi is a French drug company. It's one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world with $42 billion in annual revenue. They got interested in dengue decades ago because it's such a widespread illness and because there was no drug to treat it, no cure for dengue, and no existing vaccine for it. Everyone was really excited about this vaccine. Sanofi saw a big public health opportunity, also a big commercial opportunity. And there were competitors working on dengue vaccines at the same time, so they really wanted to give themselves an edge over the competition. They compressed the time that it would usually take to do clinical trials. They started their big phase 3 trial before the phase 2 trial had ended. They set up their operations commercially to really move as quickly as they could. They invested in manufacturing early so they would have a ready supply of this vaccine as soon as it was approved. Meanwhile, health ministers were excited about the possibility of this vaccine too. The Philippines was a really obvious place for there to be the first sort of big immunization program involving Dengvaxia. One, dengue had been a really serious problem for a long time. It affects many people every year. It kills people every year. There are outbreaks every 3 to 4 years, which are extremely costly for the country. The Philippines had also been involved in Dengvaxia's development. There had been clinical trials there. They were, compared to other countries, fairly familiar with this vaccine. So in April 2016, before any other country did, they launched a big mass immunization program targeting 1 million 9 and 10-year-olds through a school vaccination program.
Yung dengue will actually evolve into a milder type that will not require hospitalization.
So a big turning point in the story came in November 2017 when Sanofi made an announcement about the vaccine. They announced that for people who hadn't been infected with dengue before, those people actually had a higher risk of getting severely ill if they had the vaccine. It was no longer recommended that the vaccine be given to people who had not had dengue before. So what Sanofi didn't communicate was that the risk was very small. There wasn't any sort of sense of what severe dengue meant. This caused people to panic. Messages were going around on social media. People were weighing in without a lot of the facts. Politicians were calling for investigations. So it very quickly exploded into this storm of fear and genuine concern that parents had about their children. There were these reports of children who had been vaccinated who then died. The Public Attorney's Office in the Philippines, which is part of the Department of Justice, became sort of the advocates for these people, and they started investigating the cases of these children's deaths. And the way they did that was they did autopsies, which were shown on TV, which they broadcast live on Facebook in some cases. And The forensic team that was performing these autopsies were saying the organs are swollen, we see bleeding, and they linked these cases to Dengvaxia. They're in the process of investigating and filing cases against those that they, allege were involved with the Dengvaxia program. So those include Sanofi employees, a lot of government health officers, some scientists.
I categorically deny any wrongdoing. I am not involved in any corruption, and I am willing to be investigated.
Meanwhile, medical and scientific experts very strongly dispute the claims. They say there's no evidence for these cases being linked to the vaccine. There are people that were pointing out that their forensic examiners are not real pathologists, that the way they were conducting autopsies was incredibly inappropriate. At the moment, the Department of Health in the Philippines does not link any deaths to Dengvaxia. One really awful side effect of this vaccine scare was that people in the Philippines lost trust in their government, and with that, lost trust in vaccines generally. So the coverage rates were already dangerously low in the Philippines, and this event sort of pushed it over the edge. In 2018, there was a measles outbreak. 2019, there were more than 40,000 measles cases in the Philippines. Recently, there was a polio outbreak in the Philippines. So they've seen lots of infectious disease that certainly this vaccine scare contributed to. Experts, are quick to point out Dengvaxia could have a tremendous public health benefit, especially in countries like the Philippines, like Thailand, that have a lot of dengue. This vaccine could do a lot of good and prevent a lot of dengue cases. The problem is there are a small population that will not benefit from this vaccine, and not only will they not benefit, they could get more sick. So the obvious answer, which is to give this vaccine to the people that will benefit from it, is not something you can do right now. There is not a quick, inexpensive test that government could use to determine who's had dengue before and who hasn't. So this is the real tragedy. Here's this first ever vaccine against dengue that is really hard for countries to use. For now, the millions of people who could benefit from the vaccine will have to wait.